Hello, everyone. Thank you again for being here and sharing your time with us today. We are excited to have you coming to campus very soon and are excited to be here today to share some insights, particularly from two Booth veterans, rising second years. Actually, two at the moment. We will have a third one join in a little bit. And so we are here kind of to cover some things that we think are on your minds, some topics that we think are on your minds, but we also, there's Victoria. Sorry, I didn't realize you snuck in there, Victoria. So we have some kind of preconceived notions of what you might be thinking about as you prepare to come to campus, but we also really want to hear from you and make sure that we answer any questions or allay any concerns, anything we can do to help get you even more excited and ready to make the most of this program. So I want to start out. I didn't introduce myself. Sorry about that. I jumped right in. Katie Bell. I am director and COO of the Kilts Center. And I also happen to be a student in the evening MBA program. So on occasion, I might end up seeing some of you in class. I know Sierra and I have gotten the chance to be in class together. And so I have a little bit of experience as a student, so far remote only student. That's not true. I have been in one hybrid class, dual modality. So we're gonna start off covering a few questions, but please don't hesitate to either raise your hand or put something in chat. And we, again, because we are here for you. But I'm gonna turn it over first to Sierra. I wanna have each of our second years introduce each of themselves and tell us a little bit about where you've been this summer, your function in industry, and maybe tell us what helped you decide on what internship to take, for example. So Sierra, we'll start off with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sierra. Like Katie said, a rising second year, which is weird to say. I'm also the marketing group full-time co-chair, so hopefully some of you will join the group. But yes, this summer I was a marketing intern at PepsiCo, and for me personally, I came from a retail background, and I knew that I still wanted to have my hand on product and owning like general management, owning a brand in a general management lens, but I knew that retail and fashion just wasn't for me industry-wise, and I wanted to go towards something that I felt better about, and that for me was food. And PepsiCo specifically, I really loved all the people that I met. You can tell they're really passionate about their job, about the industry, about the brand they're working on, and I knew that it was something that I can learn from in an environment that I can grow in. So that's why I ended up choosing PepsiCo.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Victoria, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Victoria. I'm currently interning at Google as a product manager for Google TV. And I was interested in going into product management because, so I originally came from consulting, where you are helping make strategic decisions for a product, but you're not that involved. And I really wanted to be involved on a product level from the ground up. And yeah, that's why I decided to choose my internship.
Thanks, Victoria. Erica, what about you?
Hey guys, welcome to Booth. Excited to get to know all of you. My name is Erica. I'm a product marketing intern at Instagram. And I think one of the things that drew me to this role was first, I was really interested in going into software just because of how fast-paced it is. And then second, I really like that this role had both inbound and outbound marketing. So inbound meaning there was a lot of like product strategy and research that I knew that I'd get to do in this role, and outbound as in I also got to delve into a lot of go-to-market projects rolling out features.
Nice. So thinking back to last year and how that kind of had an impact, helped prepare you for what you did this summer or might still be doing this summer. What were there certain experiences, programming, classes? What do you feel like, what sticks out in your mind as being especially helpful for your internship? And Erica, we'll start with you and kind of work our way back again and then mix it up.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think one of the classes that was tremendously helpful, and I promise you Art didn't pay me to say this, but it's arts class, which is the new products and services lab. I actually got to work with the Dropbox PMM team. So what I was working on during that class was directly relevant to what I'm working on this summer, and I still reference some of the materials from class during my internship. And another class that I found very helpful was platform competition, because Facebook and Instagram are a platform. So just really understanding that business model and like that perspective has really helped me this summer.
Nice. And I will endorse that that a lot of students, especially who go into tech roles, over the years have said the same thing, that new product development is especially practical and helpful, the frameworks you learn and so forth. Victoria, tell us about your experience and what was really helpful.
So for me, my interview family experience was super helpful. So if you are interested in tech product management, highly recommend you join BTG and sign up for an interview family. My lead was absolutely incredible. Every week you have a certain set of questions that or a certain type of question that you're learning how to address. And even in the internship experience, I find myself going back when I think about, oh, what metric should I think about? I'll go back to a guide that he provided. So yeah, that was tremendously helpful for me, and also helpful in preparing for the interview.
Great. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the first Friday, or maybe it's the last Friday of the month of September, when the student-led group fair takes place, and you all can kind of dig in a little bit more and explore what sort of groups you want to join. But let's turn it over to Sierra. What was especially helpful for you?
I will have to ditto what Erica said. I actually took the same course with Professor Terrell, and yeah, they have like a wide range of industries and companies that you can work with. So I actually worked with Molson Coors, which was super helpful going into my PepsiCo internship. So each person in the group that you work with on the specific project has a specific different role. And that's really great in terms of like cross-functional work and building those soft skills that I needed for my PepsiCo internship. But also it allowed you to really put into practice the 3 C's and the 4 P's that you learned in marketing strategy into real like live work that Molson Coors will take and then implement in their business one day. So it was super cool. And also there's a heavy nod to innovation, which is always going to be important. Like, just to be ahead in marketing in any industry, you're going to need to know how to innovate and to continuously like come up with new ideas and strategies, and how to implement those strategies quickly, which is something we had to do in the 9 weeks that our course was, because it was virtual. But yes, all that to say, ditto to what Erica said.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So I wanted to find out, something I've heard, a sentiment that I've heard from a lot of first years is that you get there and you're basically inundated with opportunities and resources. There's so much that complements the curriculum, including what we offer at the Kilts Center, but you can't do it all, right? And so what are some of the ways that what would be helpful to share with people on how you prioritized those various opportunities? And we'll start with Victoria on this one and go to Erica after that.
Sure. So for me, I really had top 2 priorities each quarter. And so for me, I'm also a computer science dual degree. So CS classes are always an underlying priority for me, because those classes take a lot of time. But on top of that, for example, my first quarter and about half of my second quarter, my focus was on recruiting. So I really did heavily prioritize that over social and other things. But once I got my offer, then I switched my priority to meeting my peers and really delved deeper into that priority. But I just think you only have so much time, and if you really know what your focus is, once you're done with that focus, for example, for me it was recruiting, I could go into my other priorities after that.
I'll plus one to what Victoria said regarding like just figuring out your priorities, and those priorities can be fluid. I also want to add that for me going in, I knew that I had certain goals. For instance, I knew that I wanted to become one of the co-chairs for the Booth technology group, because I was very interested in the programming as well as like the networking aspect of it. And because of that, I was very involved in that group, and it helped me professionally and also socially. And yeah, I am one of the co-chairs, so definitely look into that when you guys come to the fair with all the different groups available.
Sarah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So just going off of that, something very similar. I came in knowing what I wanted to get out of my booth experience. Like I wanted to build my marketing skills, and I knew I wanted to make friends. Like that's what I wanted to do. So I really dove into the marketing community, and I dove into my marketing classes, and I made sure I knocked out my concentration before my internship started, which was like really helpful. But at the same time, I also looked at, okay, like what do I enjoy? So I joined yoga club, I joined wine club, I joined other clubs, so I can also meet people who have similar interests and also make friends.
So speaking of friends, what sort of were some other ways? So there are professional groups and then more social student-led groups. What are other ways that you all built friendships and maintained friendships? Do you have any advice on that? And Sarah, you just spoke to it. So let's go to Erica.
Yeah, I think in addition to the groups, like classes was another great way to meet people. And I'll just say that we're all really eager to meet one another. So I think even like reaching out to people on Slack that I had seen in class and like asking them to go for a walk or hang out. So it's definitely not weird to just like reach out to people out of the blue. And I highly encourage you all to do that too.
Anything to build on that, Victoria?
Yeah, plus one to that. I am a huge fan of just the random reach out. I did a lot of mock interviews with people, and I would, if I really felt like we were connecting closely, then I would just say, hey, do you want to go on a walk? And toward like after I was done with recruiting, I went on 1 to 2 walks a day. It's just a really great way to get to know people one-on-one. And I will say also where you live, at least for me, it really helped me make a friend group there as well. Especially when you're moving in. I remember the person who held one of my pieces of furniture before I moved in now is one of my closest friends. So yeah.
Awesome. I know that's definitely an important part of your experience, not just while you're at Booth, but then ideally, after Booth as well, when you're part of the alumni network, which probably feels a long way away for most of you at the moment. I want to talk a little bit, building on what Art talked about, just how the Kilts Center fits into the experience. And as Art noted, and as you can tell from the students we have on the call here, we especially support students who are pursuing two paths. We serve students across the board, but probably the most students fit into the CPG sort of traditional marketing, whether it's CPG, retail luxury, but brand management type careers, as well as technology, product management, as well as product marketing management. And so I wanted to hear from you all on how did the Kilts Center fit into your experience? How did it complement the experience for you? And again, kind of what advice would you give students related to how to best utilize the offerings, our programs and activities? So Victoria, do you want to start out?
Yeah, sure. So I think the speaker events that Kilts put on are great. I can speak to, I remember the Tola founder came in, and that was just super interesting to hear him speak about the business he built, especially food is another interest of mine. So I just thought he had some really good insights around what it was to build a business from scratch. And yeah, working in a startup is is a side idea, side passion of mine. So.
Well, with marketing skills, you'll be well prepared for that, right? Sierra, what about you?
Yeah, I would say ditto to what Victoria said. The speakers that the Kilts Center brings in are just amazing, like supplemental aspect of the booth experience. I would also say, again, I know I'm harping on this, but the new products and services labs and all the other labs out there are just awesome. Like, they literally put you like in the real world, and it's challenging and in a good way, and it forces you to grow. Oh, and just working with the Kilts Center in general as a co-chair has also been awesome. Just like things that we know, like as second years, like, okay, as a first year, I wish I would have heard from these 3 people or had these type of experiences. So working with the Kilts Center to really build those out and mold what your first year experience will be. Hopefully it's awesome. But yeah, just having that ability to really work with the Kilts Center and come up with awesome programming for you all.
Thanks for that shout out. Erica, what about you?
In addition to everything that's been mentioned, I also got to participate in the marketing case competition, which is put on by the Kilts Center. And even though the project was more CPG based, and obviously I'm in tech right now, I thought it was directly relevant to everything I'm doing, because at the end of the day, marketing is all about being the voice of the customer. So I learned a lot from that experience, and also got to meet some new people.
Awesome. Well, okay, I'm gonna really encourage all of you on the call to start bringing your questions in. Jackie, thank you for kicking it off with your question, and Art has answered it in the chat. But we will turn it over. When did you, Sierra and Erica, when did you take New Product and Services Lab? Sierra, why don't you start off?
Yeah, so I took it this past spring. So it was literally like right before my internship started. I thought that was very helpful. And it also allowed me to take other marketing prereqs before that. So then I'm like, okay, like I have this wealth of knowledge and now I can put it all into practice, which I found helpful.
Yes.
I took the class. I took the class in the winter quarter, and I was very strategic about it because I knew that I had to take marketing strategy in the fall. So that's just a pro tip if you want to do it that way.
Absolutely. Okay. Others on the call, I again feel like we have exhausted what we think is going on for you in your brains, but okay, thank you, Charlotte. What other marketing courses would you recommend if someone's looking into product management? Victoria, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I think marketing strategy, just the general marketing strategy, would probably be pretty helpful, especially for the interview questions. You do get questions around like a question that a PMM would get around launch. So I think that class could be helpful.
Anything to add to that, Erica?
I'll plus one that. Sierra, I think it sounds like you took several marketing classes. I'm not sure if you have any others to add.
I've never looked into product management, so I don't know if I would be the best person to answer that question. I literally was just straight ahead brand.
Got it. Are there other non-marketing classes that you all would want to mention that you think were helpful for new product development, or sorry, for PM other than new product development? Or for CPG, Sierra?
Yeah, for mine, you have to take it, but I found micro helpful just because we were talking through a sales forecast and understanding like, okay, we have to increase prices here. So how is that realistically going to affect our sales going forward? But other than that, let me think. I also found, I'm blanking on this now, but it's a data course that basically takes you through R, and it allows you to analyze large sets of data, which is something that I had to do in my internship experience. I'm gonna look up the title of it and pop it in the chat. I'm blanking right now, but I also found that class very helpful.
Anything to add, either Victoria or Erica, on other kind of highlight classes that you thought were really useful?
Platform competition is really useful for those who are going into tech, especially interested in companies that are platforms like Facebook, for instance.
Great. All right, I love this. The questions are rolling in. So I will thank you for those of you who've put stuff in chat. Again, if you'd like to raise your hand, you're welcome to. I have one that's not in chat that has come up here. Do any of you on the panel consider themselves like creative before you pursued a career in marketing? This is someone who loves the analytical component of the PMM role, but I'm not sure that she or he has the creativity component or the creativity to take on that kind of a role. Thoughts on that? I guess sort of how important is being a creative person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely helpful, and it's one of the things that I like about marketing, but I'm sure that creativity is something that can be inspired. And I don't believe that, you know, someone's either creative or not creative. So I'm sure that, you know, through different exercises and like kind of thought starters, you can also be creative.
Any other thoughts on that, Sierra or Victoria?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sierra, you go first.
Okay. For me, I did consider myself a more creative person. Prior to business school, I was in buying and product development, and I also sew. So I did find myself a more creative person. That being said, there, like Erica said, there are ways to become more creative. Like I know for PepsiCo, they do have like more of a structure that helps you think through things and be more creative. So there are ways to like pull that out of yourself.
Good advice. Victoria.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I'm particularly creative, but I think what's helpful is to understand, for example, for Tech PM, understand what the possibilities are, and then in interviews, you can speak to, oh, I know that this kind of technology exists, and that kind of helps supplement your creativity.
Great. Janani, we have your hand raised, and please correct me if I mispronounced your name in any way. But if you want to come off mute, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Janani. Thank you again for all the really helpful tips and really helpful information. The question I had was if we have a preference for a location we'd like to kind of settle down and end up after our MBA, how heavily does that come into play, or like how heavily do we need to be considering that when we're recruiting for internships?
Do one of you want to take that? Does one of you want to take that? It's a tough one, huh?
I think things are changing tremendously right now, especially given COVID. And I've seen that more and more companies are flexible in terms of location. I think it's, I wouldn't say that location should be something that you like immediately look for as a filter, because I think at the end of the day, if you have the conversation with the potential company or explore that role, like there might be a possibility of like there being like other locations where you could live or flexibility around that.
Good, that's helpful. We have a question from Saron. Are there any course, and there's actually a couple of questions that are sort of brewing around this same topic. So getting back to the curriculum and thinking about taking classes, whether they're lab classes or others, are there any that you recommend taking prior to recruiting that you think were really instrumental in preparing you for that experience? And then Alex, thank you for your hand. I will be with you after one more question about curriculum and choosing classes. So anybody, one of you have thoughts on what was especially useful for recruiting? Just
I
maybe.
think I wouldn't stress too much about getting into the perfect classes prior to recruiting, because I do really think that your interview family will lead the way. And if you're recruiting for tech, I do think BTG, shout out to Erica, who's co-chair, but I do think they offer incredible sources to prep you, and I wouldn't worry too much about the class, getting into the right classes.
Well, speaking of the right classes, what about course load? So recruiting is pretty important. And so one question that came in, and I think at least one more person was asking, what do you think is the best course load for the fall, for example, 3 or 4 courses when you know that recruiting is kind of that you have to start preparing pretty quickly when you get there? Somebody want to speak to that?
So I can speak to that. I initially was taking Python, econ, accounting, and regressions, and I ended up dropping regressions. So for me, 3 courses were good, but I will say I have a background in econ. I majored in econ. I've taken accounting courses. Those are pretty simple. And then the Python one, I also have a background in Python. So I took very lighter load classes. Python's probably 2 boot classes though. So if you take like 4 boot classes that you have previous background in, you could get away with that. But otherwise, I'd probably recommend 3.
Yeah, I think it's very dependent on what the classes are. I took 4 classes in the fall, but I wanted to make sure like at least one of them would be like a light course, like light in terms of like how many hours outside of class I needed to work on. And when you look up the classes, you can actually see not only the reviews, but also approximately how many hours you should expect to work on homework.
That's helpful. Anything to add to that, Sierra?
Sorry. I actually did pre-recruiting, so I had a little bit of a different situation, but I also took 3 classes as well, just because I was worried about, jumping back into school. Like, what is it going to look like? I'm moving back to Chicago. Like, there's a lot going on. So I ended up taking stats, marketing strategy, and then accounting, just to get some of the recs out of the way, as well as try out marketing. Is this really for me? Do I really like it? Out of the gate. So I found that helpful in terms of like easing myself in.
Good. I don't know what Sierra, we lost Sierra. Oh, no, we didn't. Sorry. We're just unpinning here. Alex, let's turn it over to you for your question.
Yeah, thanks. So we talk about recruiting, and that's kind of a broad topic. I was just sort of wondering what in the fall, especially for tech, what activities really that entails versus maybe in the winter when you actually start doing interviews, and how that time commitment kind of evolves.
Who wants to take that one? Go for it, Erica.
Yeah, well, Victoria has mentioned BTG, which is the booth tech group. And then just to kind of give you a flavor for what that looks like for most people, it depends if you're recruiting for like big tech or startups, but generally in the fall, you would be doing a lot of the prep. For instance, you would be doing interview families, which Victoria mentioned. You would be attending panels to understand kind of like the different tech roles. Like, do you want to do PM or PMM? Like, what are the differences between the two? And then as you prepare and get ready for these interviews, like the winter time is usually where a lot of those interviews happen. So you would just continue to focus on that and leverage your interview families if needed.
For CPG, I would say something similar. So for marketing group, we also have interview families. We have lunch and learns where the companies come in and they talk to you. They also may offer up their own personal quick case that they want you to think through quickly, and then just way to get exposure. We also have coffee chat, day at. So those are basically like sponsored days where if it was like PepsiCo or Molson Coors or Bean Suntory, they'll take you into their office for like 4 or 5 hours. So you get to really see what the environment is like. And there are also other interviewing opportunities. So like we will have specific brands or specific reps for the brands come and sign up to do a mock interview with you all. So you get to see what it's actually like to interview with that company for that specific role.
Yeah, and I'll just add that for that marketing group, actually, I know, Sierra, you're coming from the CPG angle, but marketing group really actually represents quite a few different industries. So I know you have one of your co-chairs also, if I'm not mistaken, is in the tech industry or
Tech, healthcare. Yeah, there are a lot of different industries.
yeah. So I just want to emphasize that there's a lot of overlap there. There can be overlap between BTG and marketing group. And you'll find that they're not necessarily, you don't have to pick one, right? That there are kind of things to be gained and advantages and opportunities, different opportunities for each one. So, but they're a pretty important part of the experience for students. From Hannah Zhu, we have a question about, are there other kinds of hands-on activities, opportunities around tech that you might recommend during your time at Booth? I know Victoria spoke to this yesterday, but yeah, go for it.
So I did a Microsoft case competition. I know that there was also other big brands hosting case competitions as well. So you can get involved there. I do think it's helpful to start, if it's a company you want to recruit for, it's definitely helpful to get your name out there, especially if you advance further than just the initial round. So I would recommend that.
Awesome. So here's another question from Mingju. Do we need to know coding if you want to work as a PM or a PMM? And I presume that's going to be different, probably between those two. But if you could answer it for each one, that would be great. So Victoria and Erica.
Yeah, so for PM, it depends on what company you want to work for. So for Google, there will be a technical interview, and they will ask you computer science questions. You can always prepare for them, though you don't necessarily need to know how to code, although it is helpful. Other companies like Amazon, they have a distinction between product manager and technical product manager, and the product manager interviews are just completely behavioral. So you can just you don't need coding background for that kind of PM. But yeah, I would just look at the companies, because Microsoft also has a similar distinction between tech PM and PM. So it depends on the company.
I think for PMM, you certainly do not need to know how to code. However, it just happened to be an interest of mine. So I did take a class called App Dev, which I found super interesting. I actually learned how to code Ruby, but it never really came up or was expected of me for any interview.
That's helpful. Ellen Chen asked a question that was similar to the question about tech opportunities, other hands-on tech opportunities. And so I'm actually going to kind of put in a plug for this one. So she's asking about other marketing opportunities that help you gain experience aside from labs and the case. Well, I was going to say the case competition. I guess I didn't finish reading that part. But this year, the case competition is a little bit unique. It's typically in the years prior, we've often done it with either a lifestyle brand, being a spirits company, or CPG. But this year we're working with a company, Whirlpool, and it's going to be a little bit more broad in terms of experience. The challenge is going to have to do with the Internet of Things and how devices are connected to, the opportunities to connect devices with apps, and it's really going to be focused on the app and getting customers to take that app up and that sort of thing. And so it's actually going to be another opportunity that to kind of get a little bit of tech experience, a little bit of general management, and a little bit of marketing. It's going to be a bit more of a mix. So I thought if anybody else has other examples of opportunities, again, the labs are a fabulous opportunity, a great way to do that. The case competition is another, and there are case competitions outside of just the Kilts Center case competition that we offer, as Victoria was alluding to. Any other thoughts on that I didn't touch on? So Natasha asked the question, are marketing roles mostly split between CPG and tech, or are there other brand management roles in other industries? short answer is yes, but I will let any of you, I think, Sarah, why don't you talk about, again, from the marketing group, what sort of other industries you have represented? You mentioned healthcare, et cetera.
Yeah, there are a lot of other industries. I know we're pretty heavy on CPG tech right now, but yeah, we do have healthcare. We also have, tech roles. So there are a lot. You don't have to just go into CPG or just tech to join one of our groups.
Yeah, and did you mention retail and luxury?
Oh yes, retail,
another popular space. And then we haven't talked a lot about analytics, but that's that's growing in interest among a lot of people. There's a business analytics concentration that there are quite a few marketing courses in that mix. There's a course on pricing, which I know hasn't come up today, but it has in the past when we've done these events where there are some people who feel that taking pricing or data-driven marketing, one of those two, is really helpful for internships. So those are two other marketing classes that are that you might want to keep an eye out for. Before we move on, I'm going to do a quick poll of people in the audience. We are going to continue answering questions, so please don't think this is the end of the event, but we want to hear from you just so far on your take on what you're getting from this event. So I'm just going to give you a minute or two to answer that. And meanwhile, I'm going to kind of queue up our next question from Leslie, who is asking about when you'll be able to join student groups. That does take place during orientation, closer to when classes actually start, correct?
I believe so. Yeah. So late September, early October, I believe.
So that is to come. You will receive more information on that. Let's see. Between BTG, Marketing Club or Marketing Group, Retail and Luxury, is there a lot of overlap? In other words, given the limited experience, limited time you have, would it make sense to join more than one? So maybe talk about which ones you all joined and what you thought was most helpful.
Yeah, so I specifically only joined Marketing Group, but one way I think that could probably help you decide which group you would want to join, you can look at the sponsors and you can really see okay, if there is overlap for specific sponsors. I don't think there is a lot of overlap for sponsors, but you can really see okay, these are the companies that I'm interested in. I will go after these two groups or however many groups there is.
Erica or Victoria, were you pretty focused on BTG?
Yeah, I would say I was pretty focused on BTG, but of course other groups have really interesting and helpful resources. So there will be an opportunity to learn a little bit more about each of the groups. And then once you have that information, maybe it could help prioritize which groups you want to join.
I'll mention that, go ahead, Victoria.
Yeah, I was going to say, I joined both BTG and Marketing Group, and I was in interview families for both. And I actually thought they complement each other well, because even when you're answering a product question, sometimes they'll ask you about a non-tech product. So I thought it was good to have both experiences.
Again, analytics, I mentioned just a few minutes ago. I know the analytics club, I think it's club, not group, but either way, for anybody trying to, they offer a lot of training, peer-to-peer training on things like R, Python, or some of the technical skills that you might need for that help in some of your classes. So that's another one to look out for. We at the Kilts Center work with a number of different student groups, most heavily with Marketing Group and with BTG. But analytics is another one that we work with, Retail and Luxury, General Management, just to kind of, again, give you some sense of where, of what sort of groups are going to be helpful as you explore these careers. Let's see. Okay. Natasha, another question. For brand management, non-tech, would we plan for interviews or other activities between finals and January during winter break, or can you go home after finals and plan for January interviews? The interviews do not take place over winter break, right? you have that break, and you would not be expected to be on campus or be doing interviews. If any of you want to correct me on that.
So I think the thing to add there, Katie, would be around treks,
Good
which
point.
last year were virtual, but historically.
Oh, we're losing you, Art. I don't know if that's my end or. So, yeah, would one of you be willing to talk
Great.
about
Yeah.
treks, which take place, when they take place, and how those are a benefit?
Yeah, so treks usually for marketing group occur in the fall. This year, we're going to push them back into the spring just because we're hoping that they can be in person. But usually it's like a week or a few days long, and you go to a specific location, so like New York City, and you visit a lot of different companies with a Booth alum there, and they basically just talk to you about their day-to-day and their specific role, their company. It's not necessarily specifically targeting, I'm trying to get a job with this through this trek. It's more so like I'm learning about this company and different roles that I can go into.
And BTG will also be having a trek. The timing for that is TBD. It'll most likely be a trek to the San Francisco Bay Area or the West Coast to chat with different companies like Google, Facebook, Adobe, and get to talk to alums at those companies as well.
Awesome. And Ellen Chen, you brought that up. I hadn't read your question yet, but so we've answered that one as well. So, and the treks are going to be again, different student groups do them. So BTG and marketing are just two. I think I've answered all of the questions. If I've missed, I'm trying to scroll through, but does anybody else, this is kind of a last call to see if anybody else wants to tap these wonderful ladies who have shared their afternoon with us, or a little bit of their afternoon with us. If not, Art, do you have any parting advice, first of all, as a faculty member and the executive director of the Kilts Center?
I think Erica and Sierra and Victoria have done a great job laying it.
Oh, we're losing you again, Art.
Looks like my Zoom is unstable. Sorry about that, guys. I'll pass it back to you, Katie. Sorry.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's just have a minute each for parting advice, 30 seconds each. What is your parting advice for how to make the most of Booth Year One and get the most out of it? Go for it. Victoria, I'm going to start with you, and then Sierra and Erica.
I would just say know your priorities and stick to them, and everything will work out.
Good elevator pitch. Sierra.
Yeah, I would say do something that makes you a little scared. Like, don't be afraid to jump outside of your comfort zone. We have great non-disclosure, so take a class you think it's very hard, like something you're gonna learn, something you're gonna learn from. So yeah.
I would say just like leverage your network and each other. I think that's one of the things that I love about the Booth community, how helpful everyone is. So whether that's like help with a class or help with recruiting, like everyone's super open. So yeah, just reach out to as many people as you can.
And I'll add one little bit, which is this, you should have fun. This is a luxury for those of you who are giving up 2 years of your life to do this full time. That is an amazing, amazing opportunity. So try to relish it and be grateful for that, and just keep things in perspective, I would say. It's easy to get caught up in a lot of different details and feel like your entire world is on the line in the decisions you make, but it's 2 years out of your life, and you'll all go on to do amazing things, but take advantage of this time and enjoy it.